Broncos training camp. We've reached the end, Broncos country, the final day for fans out of training camp. And there are no tears, just smiles, as folks get one last look at the team before the second preseason game and some major decisions that are looming for this roster. Drew Lock there. So does this Broncos group have greatness within it? To answer that, we're bringing in a wide receiver who played on one of the great Broncos rosters in history. There's the young rookies getting the crowd pumped up. A guy who knows a little something about longevity and greatness in the NFL. He is joining us in just a second, but welcome in to Broncos Training Camp Live, presented by U.S. Bank. I'm Matt Boyer. Broncos country. Well, this is it. It's bittersweet. Training camp comes to a close today, as we mentioned it at the top. Today's training camp practice going to look a lot differently than it has previously this week. Practice only scheduled to run about 90 minutes. Players are not in pads. This is going to look a little bit more like a regular season practice, more so than what we've seen really at this point in training camp. A couple of news and note items to get to today, though. Patrick Surtain, we mentioned yesterday, he left practice Tuesday with some soreness. And for Vic Fangio, that was enough to make him lean towards being cautious, and so Surtain did not see the field on Wednesday. Good news, though, he's back out stretching there today. Again, the players aren't in pads, so this is going to be a little bit of an easier task for PS2 to get back on the field. Also, we're keeping an eye on is that outside linebackers group. Andre Mintz and Malik Reed both out with injuries. Mintz is in the concussion protocol, and Reed has an ankle injury, so it will be very interesting to see how Vic Fangio might utilize his edge rushers against Seattle, with the decision still to be made whether Bradley Chubb and Von Miller see the field this preseason. Some good news, however, on the injury front. Tim Patrick back at practice Wednesday. Didn't get his normal reps, so it appeared he was a bit limited, but seeing him back on the field after missing an extended period of time, very, very encouraging. Now, Broncos country. Each day, our guy, the Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater, is bringing in the special guest with him to break down practice. And for our final day, we need a big show. We need a big play. So, a guy who always came up big in the clutch. Look at this miracle play in Cincinnati. Ooh. When a comeback was needed, whether it be in Cincy or San Diego in the second half, a miracle play. This man had the good 17 touchdown catches and over 2,000 yards receiving in his 4 combined years with the Broncos. Brandon Stokley, welcome to Broncos Training Camp Live. It's good to see you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We started with some clutch catches, man. Did you know the quarterback was coming to you on those plays?
Well, I knew Peyton was coming to me. Kyle Orton, we were just throwing it up for grabs, and that was right place, right time. But I knew Peyton was coming to me because he was audibling there at the last second, so I knew he was coming to me. And, he made a great throw. I didn't have much vertical at age 36, but was able to get just enough to get it.
Oh, perfect.
It's good to see you in person. I know I talked with Steve. You had the distinction of having the best Zoom background. Your office looks incredible on Zoom, but it is great to see you back here in person. What's it been like to be out here? You've been out here a lot amongst the fans in Broncos country.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. You look at this roster and the expectations, the depth that they have, and it's been awesome just to be back out here with the fans and see the fans and how excited they are about the season. And so really looking forward to a different season, because it's 17 games now, a little bit different, and seeing if the Broncos can get back going in the right direction. But they got the roster for it.
Who do you think is the most talented position on this team?
Wow.
Go ahead and say a wide receiver.
I love the wide receivers. Of course I do. But you look at the outside linebackers with Von and Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed, who had a great year last year. But the secondary, how can you not say the whole secondary? I mean, you look at it. I mean, they got depth outside, inside. You look at the 2 safeties. The secondary to me is a top 3 secondary. They might be the best secondary in the league. They got it all: veteran presence, young guy, youth. But they can play inside, outside. So they have a little bit of everything in that secondary. It's going to be fun to watch and see how Vic uses them this year.
You mentioned the secondary. You've been out here almost every single day at practice. Where does your eye go when you're analyzing or evaluating camp? Because obviously I know you're a wideout, but when you're evaluating roster breakdowns and who might make this team, where do your eyes go?
Offensively, to me, it's easier to evaluate the offensive side of the football than the defensive side of the football. I mean, that's more of what I know, and can kind of look at things and hope to see what they're trying to accomplish. but I watch mostly offense, and we got a little bit of a quarterback competition here, so that's kind
You
of where
don't
my eyes go. Is to the quarterback position, but offensively, I think this defense is going to be really good. But how does the offense play this year? I think that's a big question mark.
Now, a lot of people have been saying that it's important that we select the starting quarterback so they can get reps with the first unit. How do you feel about that? I mean, do wide receivers need to get used to receiving the ball from a certain quarterback because the ball comes a certain way, or you can catch from anybody?
Right. That was my mindset. Hey, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. Just if they throw me the football, I got to catch it.
Right.
I got to do my job. I think what you're missing out on is just those little things, the little details that you get with your starting quarterback when you make a mistake out at practice. And then you go off to the side and you talk about that mistake and you talk about the little things that quarterback likes that you might not get when you have the quarterback competition. But ultimately, the offensive line has a job to do. The receivers have a job to do. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, but you would like to have that position solidified as early as possible, though.
Brandon, you've been a part of some great rooms as far as wide receiver rooms go in your career. 2012, when you were here, that was a loaded. I mean, you guys had wide receivers or weapons in the wideout room. You guys had great tight ends, running backs. You guys had it all. How does that change the dynamic when in offensive meetings when you've got those type of weapons around you?
Well, it's huge. I think anytime that when I was in Indy, we had Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Edgerrin James. So when you have skill positions all over the place that can make plays, you don't quite know when it's going to be your day, and you always got to be prepared. And when the opportunity presents itself, guess what? If you don't take advantage of the opportunity, someone else will. So you kind of get replaced in line. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun when you're playing with a lot of other talented players. And certainly the Broncos skill position guys, they got youth and they got talent.
Have you found that coaches coach teams who have a lot of talent differently than they coach teams who may not have as much talent but have a lot of gritty guys on the team?
I think so. I think you have to, every year and every individual is unique and different, and I think you have to approach them that way in how you coach them. Some guys you got to get on them a little bit more, Steve. Some guys you need to pump them up a little bit more. So I think coaching, one of the great things about coaching, and if you want to be a really good coach, is you can't just coach one way. You have to be flexible in your approach to different players because every player responds differently to coaching.
See Noah Fant on the screen here. We just talked.
I'm looking forward to seeing Noah Fant this year, and being the second year with Pat Shurmur. I think he had a really good year last year, kind of under the radar, really good year. But I think he's going to have a great year this year and really put the nation on notice that he's an upper echelon tight end.
Knowing what you know about this Broncos offense, how important is Fant's role going to be if this offense is going to take that next step? Because it seems like every team that has success at the NFL level now has to have one of those great tight ends on the outside that can make plays.
Absolutely. They're mismatch nightmares. Do you put the safety on him? Do you put a linebacker on him? You always have to account for somebody like that. Where are they at? And he's so big, he's so fast, it's hard to figure out a game plan for a guy like that. So those guys are unique, and having one on your – I mean, we've seen here with Travis Kelce over the last 4 or 5 years how hard it is to stop that guy. But when you have one, it just puts so much pressure on a defense, play in and play out, to know where that guy is.
And we have great depth at the tight end position as well. You got Noah Fant, you got Albert O. Then you also have Andrew Beck, and also who was hurt last year, Austin Ford.
Yep.
He's back. He's been looking really good. And another guy who's been flashing for me is Eric Saubert. He looked really, really good as well. Like, man, we got some great players on this team, man.
And Albert O, before he got hurt last year, was having a great rookie season. He was really coming on. He has that relationship with Drew from Missouri. So it's going to be fun to watch him and his development. Hopefully he's healthy and he's looking good out here at training camp, but hopefully he can get back up to speed. But he was having a really good rookie season. And you pair a couple nice tight ends on the football field with your skill position guys and being able to go 3 wide, 2 tight ends, and mismatch depending on what you want to do against a defense. I mean, that I think is when you can take that next step offensively.
When you've got so many of these guys, Brandon, like Albert O, Cortland Sutton, big weapons that you're going to count on this season, how do you balance getting them reps in practice and maybe playing them in a preseason game, or just saying, hey, week one, we'll turn you loose, but we're going to keep you off for now.
That's the most difficult thing to do because, if it works out, you did a great job, Vic Fangio. But if it doesn't work out and you start slow, if you get somebody hurt, it's like, what are you doing? You need those guys in the regular season. So there's a fine line that you have to walk there. And I think you treat everyone, again, different and unique. And because, certain guys, they need to play. Other guys, I would be really hesitant to play them, especially now with 17 games. It's a little bit longer season. And you need your guys. You need your dudes to win in the NFL. And you hate to see a guy get injured in preseason.
There's a lot of important dates coming up for the Broncos, including this Saturday against the Seahawks in preseason game number 2. By August 24th, the Broncos need to get down to 80 players on the roster. Then they'll go into that third preseason game against the Rams, and then the big cut. The Broncos need to get down to 53 players. They can establish a practice squad on September 1st, and then we're into week 1. So, guys, Brandon, I'll start with you. When you think about the cuts that have to be made or the decisions that are upcoming for the Broncos, where do these next 2 preseason games play? Because it seems like every other team has a different philosophy on, okay, I'm using game 2 as the dress rehearsal, or I'm using game 3 just for the guys that are down roster. How do you see this playing out for the Broncos possibly?
Well, I mean, it's huge for the younger guys and for the guys that are on the bubble, deciding if they're going to make the football team or not. And I remember preseason games when I was a young football player, and for me, I mean, it was like playoffs. It was like Super Bowl. Everything was on the line. So obviously, these next couple preseason games are going to be huge for a couple guys, whether it's with the Broncos or putting good film out there and for other teams to see and maybe getting picked up by those teams if you do get cut by the Broncos. So, you need to get ready to play early in the football season. So you got to get some guys some reps, but you need to be cautious with other guys.
Now the young guys like that who or I would say young guys, just the guys who are kind of on the tail end of the roster who – or kind of fringe players,
Yep.
Not sure if they're going to make the team or not. Do they have in their minds, hey, I got to be healthy for the season, or it's like, I just got to be full speed in everything I do.
I got to make the football team first and foremost. There might not be a regular season, so
right.
You got to go out there. And I've been on the bubble a few times. I've gotten cut at the end of training camp, so I've been in every kind of position where I haven't played much and where I needed to play a lot. And I think those guys realize where they're at on the roster. Everybody kind of looks around the room, and so you start counting, and okay, 1 receiver, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 are definitely making the team, and that they're going to keep 5 or 6. And you start doing the math, and hey, I need to play, and I need to play well.
Yeah. Man, this is fun, man. It's fun watching the guys develop, and especially the young guys. You see KJ Hamler go out, have a good game that he had. Jerry Jeudy trying to get back to what he was like when he was in college. How difficult is it to get back to that form? And he had a nice game, first preseason game. How difficult is it to come off a season where it wasn't as good as he hoped, but I think he finished strongly.
Yes.
But what's that like coming to the next year, having put in all that work over the offseason?
I think for a guy like, KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy, obviously they probably wanted to have better rookie seasons, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, to come from college to the NFL and then just have success right away. It's not an easy thing to do. And then plus you throw in all the things that were happening last year and no offseason and no preseason games and all of those types of things that you just didn't, get that you normally would get. Makes it difficult. And I think those guys now, they're going to be more comfortable, and things are going to start slowing down for them. So you're going to see the best of those guys this year. And I'm expecting big things from both of them. I think Pat Shermer also, when you look at him and his situation, he didn't know what he was working with. So it's like, you see a guy like KJ Hamler, who's a shot play guy, who's a guy that you want to get the football in his hands, but it's hard to know exactly what he does well when you haven't had a whole offseason with him like they didn't have last year.
That's a good point.
How does the mentality shift, Brandon, with guy? It looks like Vic Fangio is going to taper things back from traditional padded training camp practices to now it's going to look a lot like the regular season. How does the mentality shift now for these guys out here on the field as we get more towards regular season mode?
Well, I think right now you're still in training camp mode here. And it's different this year again, with 3 preseason games. So I think coaches are trying to figure out the best way to manage guys. You have an extra week off, I think, now because of the lack of that 4th preseason game, so a little bit more time off. So you're trying to figure out schedules. Coaches, players have a routine, and now that routine's a little bit different with only 3 preseason games and 17 regular season games. So But I think right now a lot of these guys are still in training camp mode. They're trying to make the football team. You have a bunch of guys that know they're going to make this football team. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Kareem. I mean, a lot of guys know they're going to make it, but you also have a lot of guys that are on the bubble and they need to play well. So they're still in training camp mode and trying to earn a spot on this team.
Yeah, we see the running backs there on the screen, but we have the defensive backs right in front of us here. Brandon Stokley, when you look at defensive backs, what kind of guys, when you stepped on the field, you're like, oh man, I may have a long day, or you may have some. These like, oh, I'm about to eat today.
I didn't like guys that had long arms. Arms,
like
because,
Satan, huh?
Right, exactly. Right, tall, long, physical guys. You know, I wasn't the biggest guy, so if you got your hands on me, I struggled. So I had to use my quickness off the ball. So I'd rather go up against a little shorter, quicker defensive back than a bigger, longer, stronger guy like Pat. I mean, those guys are tough and difficult to deal with because if they get their hands on you, that messes up everything. You only have 3 or 4 seconds to get where you're supposed to be and to get open. If you get jammed at the line of scrimmage or they disrupt your route at the line of scrimmage, it's pretty much a wrap for you. So I didn't like going up against those guys. They presented the biggest challenge for me.
But most of the time, weren't you? You probably were in the slot most of the time,
yes.
right? So could you'd be off the line of scrimmage?
Yes.
Would it be more difficult for them to jam you?
It would be. It would be because being off the line of scrimmage, you have a little bit more room. And then you saw a little bit of everything in the slot. Sometimes they'd walk a linebacker out over you. Now, that guy wouldn't be running man-to-man with you. He was just out there playing in zone. Sometimes you'd have a safety drop down. Sometimes you would have the third or fourth corner, the nickel corner out there on you. So it just depended on the team and their philosophy and how they wanted to game plan. But you look at a guy like Pat Surtain and what he brings to the table. He's got it all. He's that new age. You know, we're talking about tight ends and the hybrid tight ends that can do it all. Well, you look at cornerbacks like that can flat out do it all and press you. They can drop down in the box and play linebacker. They can play outside, inside. I mean, those guys are very valuable.
Yeah, Pastor Tan. And a lot of people are saying that they believe he'll be covering Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and all the great tight ends that we have in the league this year. What do you think he'll be on the tight end, or you think he's going to be covering one of those receivers?
Yeah, you know, I think it depends on game plan and how Vic wants to use him. And the great thing about this secondary, what got me so excited about this secondary, is they have versatility. You know, you have a guy like Bryce Callahan who was, you know, one of the top-rated corners in the league last year when he was healthy, and now you're looking at him as the third or fourth corner on your team. So he can play inside, he can play outside. So you have versatility if you want to take a guy like Pat Surtain who has the speed and the athleticism to run with these guys, these tight ends, these big tight ends, physical tight ends, but also has the ability to be, you know, to man up and to hold his ground because he's a bigger cornerback. That's what excites me to see how Vic is going to game plan, game in and game out with this secondary, what he decides to do. But he has a lot of flexibility because of the depth that they have and the different, unique features that they have. You know, you got bigger guys, you got smaller guys, you have a little bit of everything. So I know Vic is going to come up with some unique, creative things and how he's going to use these guys in the secondary.
So if you would line up against Bryce Callahan, you'd have been like, yeah.
That's more my type of guy that I would prefer to go against. Pat Surtain's, no, thank you. I like to go against the smaller, quicker guys. I felt like I could manage that. Those big guys, if they got their hands on me, I felt like I panicked, and I felt like
that's interesting because I thought it would be just the opposite of that.
Right.
I thought you'd be like, you know, I want to go against the bigger guys because they're not, most of the time, they're not as quick and not as fast.
Yep.
But yeah, that's very interesting.
I like the smaller. I felt like my quickness was one of my strengths, my quickness at the line of scrimmage, so I could match quickness for quickness. I didn't have power.
Right.
I wasn't strong. You know, I didn't like to get disrupted at the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, it's a beautiful day out here today. Last day, I mean, it's nice overcast. I mean, it's perfect for the players, right? I mean, these guys. How did you feel, Steve, when I know times were different for you as they were for me as they are now, but, I mean, this is pretty much the last training camp practice for some of these guys. You know, the fans are going to be gone. I know for me, I was excited.
Yeah.
And last day, you start packing your bags. I don't know if these guys can go home yet, but you start kind of packing your bags and you get excited about the upcoming season, but also training camp is finally going to be coming to a close.
Now, were you guys up in Greeley for training camp?
We weren't up. No, we were here. Thank goodness.
We were in Greeley. No, man, that was
good.
Fun, man.
You liked Greeley.
We enjoyed it. We got a chance to build a bond with one another. Got a chance to, just be in our own kind of world there, our own football world. Go back to the dorm room. You're together with guys. You
play some cards, hang out.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards. And then, Mike, he would make it fun. We have a fishing derby. We go fishing while we're up there. We go out to the bars in the evenings and drink some Cokes. And
right, waters, hydrate.
Waters,
hydrate.
Yeah.
But you had great team bonding.
That's right.
Yes, there's something to be said for that. In Indy, we went away about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and we stayed at a college there. So we had the same type of structure there for camp, and it is a lot of fun. It's being around the guys and playing some pranks and doing some of that stuff and just being able to hang out. There's something to be said for team camaraderie because you don't get it as much nowadays with the limited off season and those types of things. And so those things are very valuable.
Yeah. See that? Those linebackers.
Looks like Josie Jewell, Josh Watson there, yep.
We got some offensive lineman numbers, 63, 64.
That's going to be difficult this year, don't you think, Steve?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, trying to figure out the number situation because you're right. You look at 63, 64, you're thinking offensive line, and these guys are linebackers now.
Yeah, Curtis Robinson and Barrington Wade.
I think watching a game is going to take us some time to get used to that.
It is. Guys can have any numbers. It's odd. I'm not a fan of that rule.
I'm not either. I'm with you. I kind of like it the way it was. It was easy to kind of see. You knew the number, the position, and now it's going to take some time to get used to.
But without it, we wouldn't have PS2.
That's right.
Good point.
That's right.
PS2
not that that's important, but I think
I like the name. I like the name.
I like that. And I remember Deion Sanders in college. He was number 1. He couldn't do it in the NFL though. But that was nice.
But I'm looking forward to seeing the linebackers also. We were just looking at Josie Jewell. He's coming back and seeing what his health looks like. And a lot of young guys got a lot of playing experience. Sternad and last game. And so the inside linebackers, I think they got some depth there. And they got a lot of youth there. So I think you're going to have a guy or two that kind of surprises and comes on, whether it's middle of the season or early in the season, and does a really good job on the inside of that defense because they got so many other great pieces around that spot. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm looking to see Baron Brown. I still haven't seen very much of him. I want to see. I got an ISO on him. Once we get done with the show today, I got an ISO on this guy and see what he's doing. If he's in the right place, if he's how he's moving, how he's seeing the offense. I think that guy can be a force in time. I don't know how soon it'll be, but I think he's going to play a role on this team at some point during the season.
Yeah, it's so hard for young football players to come to the NFL and make a huge impact right away. I don't think that people realize how difficult that is. And you have a lot going on, and you're trying to figure – and the game's just moving so fast. It's moving so fast, and it takes a little while for that game to slow down. Until the game slows down, it's hard for you to just go out there and play football. You're thinking so much. So I think that's why I'm really excited about seeing a lot of these offensive players because they're in year 2 now with Pat Shermer. Mm-hmm. Game starts slowing down. You're not thinking about the plays. You know them. You just go out there and play football. Jerry Jeudy, Hamler, Noah Fant, guys like that I'm really excited to see this year take a big step forward in year 2 of Pat Shermer.
And Drew Lock being in the same system for a second year. I mean,
that's huge.
That has to help.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, the quarterback position is so difficult. I remember in practice, I would stand behind the quarterback, we were behind him, and I would just put myself in his position. You see the chaos coming all around the guy. And I'm like, how does he even see where to throw the football? You got these big defensive linemen, and they're running, and that's practice. They're not even getting hit. Games are getting hit, and it's so difficult. And then you put in how fast the game's moving and how much they have to know and think about during each play.
And they got to not only know what the offense has to do, but they got to recognize all the different defenses and the tendencies and, know which guys you got to be aware of that may be blitzing. It's crazy.
Not easy.
It makes it beautiful, though. That's the
right.
beautiful part.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It's a tough job to do, but it's going to be interesting to see, here in the next week or two, which direction they decide to head.
Okay, you've seen Drew Lock throw the ball, and you've seen Teddy Bridgewater throw the ball. As a receiver, do receivers have preferences? I'm sure some receivers like, it to be a softer ball. Some guys like it, hey, I like them to fire it in there.
Right. I like an accurate football.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Accurate, because I played with Peyton Manning kind of in his prime, when he was at his best in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. And I played with him in 2012 where he lost some of that arm strength, but he was always so accurate. And that's what I thought was the best attribute a quarterback could have. Just be accurate with the football, because you're running into a lot of traffic, and if that football's all over the place, guys like you put the hurting on guys like me, Steve. So I like that accurate football from the quarterback position. It doesn't really matter, if you have a little bit less arm strength, like a guy like Teddy compared to Drew, you just got to be a little bit sharper and get rid of the football a little bit quicker. And a guy like Drew can hold on to the football a little bit longer because he can trust his arm strength.
One of the guys that's going to be tasked with protecting Bridgewater or Locke, whoever wins that starting job, is Dalton Risner. This Broncos offensive line has been fantastic all camp long, and it's going to be one of the strongest groups as the Broncos head into week 1. Phil Milani caught up with Dalton to talk about camp and find out where the line can take this offense in 2021.
Dalton, camp wrapping up here today. How did the last couple of weeks go for you?
They went great, man. Going into the third year, I want to have more focus and have a better camp than I've ever had, and I felt like I've done that. I feel like our team has done that. I've said it over and over here at the press conferences and throughout our preseason, but I feel like this is one of the best football teams that we've had. I feel like the offensive line has come together better than ever. Offense feels better than we ever have felt. We just have a lot of weapons, man, so I'm really excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah, like you mentioned, year 3 for you here. What are some of your goals for this season?
Man, just have a great season for myself, have a great season for our team. I want our team to succeed. I want to win more than 5 games. I want to win more than 6 games. And I think that starts with myself. The reason I say I have a good season for myself is because if all 11 guys on the football field are doing better and they're improving and they're having good football games, that's when the team's going to succeed really well. So I just want to make sure I go out there and take care of business, put guys on their back, protect the quarterback, protect the running back. And if we all do that, we're going to have a heck of a season, man. So I just want to get Bronco football back to where it needs to be.
There's a lot of guys on this team that are in year 3, year 4, kind of in that prime area here. Do you feel like there's a similar mindset from a lot of these guys that you have?
Of course, man. We've been viewed as a young team, in the years last year, and even this year we're viewed as a young team. And I think it's just time that us young guys, we don't act like we're young. We've been in the league for 2 going on 3 years, some guys 3 going on 4 years, and it's time that we go out there and perform. We don't act like we're young. We've been in the league a while. We know what to expect, and there's a lot of guys like that. We got a lot of young guys: Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton, me, Lloyd Cushenberry. Garrett's only going into his 5th year. There's a lot of guys out here that haven't been in the league that long, but we consider ourselves vets. We need to play accordingly.
A couple preseason games to go, and then we're looking forward to that first one.
It's going to be a great one, man. We get to go to Seattle this week. Starter's going to get some good reps, play the Rams at home, and then we got 2 weeks, and then we're going to New York, man. It's going to be a great Bronco season. Can't wait to kick some ass, man, and do what we love and represent Bronco country.
Appreciate it, Dalton. Thank you.
God bless. Go Broncos. Thanks, Phil.
Back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Phil. Well, a good blend of youth and experience in that Broncos offensive line room. Guys, Brandon, I'll start with you here. We heard Dalton just mention it. The starters, he's expecting them to get some good reps this weekend. How important is it going to be for that offensive line to kind of play in this preseason? We know they're experienced, we know they're talented, but I am anxious to see how they look against another team this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to knock some rust off up front with the big guys. I love the depth that they have. They got, 4 out of 5 guys returning. They got depth on that offensive line. So this is going to be the best group that they've had here in a long, long time. And when you got a really good offensive line, a solid group with depth, because you're going to have injuries, you can do so much offensively. You can lean on that running game if you need be. Play action passes, as we saw last week in that game with that big bomb to KJ Hamler. That goes off that running game and the offensive line. So I'm excited about this group up front and watching them, and we'll see how much they play this week. But I think overall this is going to be a great group this year.
I see some of the notable names missing from Game 1 versus Minnesota. Cortland Sutton, Alberto, obviously coming off of injuries. Garrett Bowles not playing. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, both returning from injury. The starting defense, guys, pretty much set for the Vikings game. So how much do these guys on defense especially need to play this week, Steve? If at all.
Yeah. Well, you know what? For me, the guys who've been injured, I'm not super interested in them going out there and risking injury, especially, Vaughn and Chubb. I know what those guys are going to do when they're on the field. And if they are to get injured, which we hope it never happens, but if they're to get injured, I want it to be in a regular season game. So I'm not too interested in seeing what they can do. I already know what they can do.
This secondary has never played together, though, Steve. Do they need to get some game reps in before week 1?
Yeah, I think so, because me as a safety, I always felt like I needed to have some contact with guys because I got to get a kind of a running start. I had to get my mindset used to it and my body used to that physicality, and the only way you can do that is in the game. Or I guess we could hit the dummies down there too, but it's a little bit different when you're tackling somebody going to the ground, and it feels totally different when it's live, and to do it the first time in the first game is kind of tough, I think.
Brandon, what do you think as far as communication goes with these DBs? Ronald Darby, Kyle Fuller, Bryce Callahan, these guys, and with the safeties back there, Simmons and Jackson, never having played a game together in full. Is that going to be an issue communication-wise, or do you think it's no problem?
I don't think it's an issue here, and the reason why I say that is because you got a veteran group. These guys are veterans. They've seen it all, and they've been through a lot. So I think when you are a veteran and you've been in this league a long time, you have a way to communicate. You have a way to look at things, and so I'm not concerned about that with this group. Now, there's certain things that you want to work out, and there's different things this year, and see how guys play, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time. But I'm not concerned with this group because of how many games they played, and you're talking about a group that has a lot of everything, veteran presence there. So I'm not overly concerned about the fact that they haven't played a lot of football together.
We got Drew Lock there, running with the ones right now.
It looks like they're doing a little scout team work, going up against probably looking at Seattle's defense, possibly, and getting some looks from what they might see on Saturday. So you got the first group offense here competing against the scout team defense. So getting some looks for Seattle, getting ready to go, trying to put their best foot forward so they know kind of what they might see on Saturday. Did y'all game plan a lot during the preseason? Did it depend on the year? Because that's kind of, they're getting ready to go.
Yeah, we didn't game plan much during the preseason, but they got us ready. They were actually running plays from the teams that we would be seeing the first couple of games of the season more so than the preseason. Because they said, hey, we want to see your how much. How fast you're going to get to the ball more so than, do you know the game plan at this point? They're trying to figure out guys that can play at that point versus,
getting ready to go for a preseason game. Yeah, I think for me it was different depending on the situation I was in. Some teams put more emphasis on it because they wanted to see some of these young guys and to put their best foot forward and say, go out here and you're going to know what you're going to see out here from this game. And other teams, like you said, they didn't really care. Like, we're going to get ready for the regular season. We really don't care about game planning and getting ready for a preseason game.
Yeah. And I like that philosophy, getting ready for the regular season. Although you got to play the game, you got to go out there and tackle, and you got to catch the ball, you got to do all the fundamentals. But if we don't know 100% what they're going to do anyway.
That's right.
So, but if it was a team we're going to play during the season, that may be a little different story.
Yes. What do you feel about when, how would you listen to the player? Like Von Miller said, he wants to play a little bit. Didn't play at all last year. He wants to play a little bit in preseason game. If you were the coach, would you take that in mind when you're looking at Von, or guys always want to play and hey, I'm the coach.
Some guys don't want to play. In the preseason,
I didn't want to play.
But yeah, I would listen to him, and I would try to come to some happy medium. Like, all right, Von, you want to play? You may want to play a quarter. I don't want you to play. So why don't we just go midway there? Just meet somewhere in the middle to where it feels good for the player, but you also get what you need as a coach.
because you want your guy ready to play. You know, you want him feeling like he's ready to go first game of the season, but also you want to protect him. It's difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a difficult thing as a head coach, figuring out how much to play these guys in the preseason.
And it's so ironic how back when we did play, we played, maybe the second and third preseason game. Well, even the fourth preseason game, we played maybe a quarter the second preseason game, 2 quarters, the third preseason game, and then we played maybe 3 quarters the next preseason game to get our endurance up for the season. And I don't recall having a ton of injuries, but now it seems like we don't hardly play in the preseason, and then we have more injuries.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to figure out, you know. I mean,
and I don't know if maybe that's just in my mind. I haven't run the numbers, but it just seems like that's the case. That we're not as physical in training camp. We're not hitting a lot, and I think a lot of it has to do because, hey, you can't do it in the games. You don't do it in practice, and then guys get injured when they have to do it.
Right, and that's the other part is you want to get guys ready to hit, and because that's part of the game, and all those things, and get their body ready for that physicality of football, because that's what's going to happen in the regular season. You can get hurt because you're not ready for that.
Yeah, like, oh man,
it's not just a hamstring or a quad. I mean, you can get hurt because you're not ready for the physicality of football because you haven't done it. But I just think that with the new age and everything, with the health and science and food and everything, nutrition, all the things that you're looking at from outside of the normal, the old school approach, that coaches just become really, really nervous and scared to lose one of their upper echelon players because of the value those guys have. You can't replace Von Miller. Right. You can't replace Bradley Chubb. You can't replace, Kareem Jackson and some of these guys. And so if you lose them in the preseason, it just hurts that much more.
Oh, it's like a dagger in the heart to hurt one of your guys in a preseason game. And everyone says, oh, man, he shouldn't have been playing them. But, sometimes the player wants to play to get ready as well. So it's definitely
it's a tough decision, right?
It's tough.
I think you have to have an approach and a philosophy, and then that's kind of the way it is. You know, this is the way we're going to do things, and but it's going to be interesting to see if Von and some of those guys do play this week, and how much.
Brandon, at what point in your career do you feel like you had a full grasp on using the preseason to the best of your ability to get ready for the year? Because we talked to a couple guys, Alfred Williams, he said it took him 5 or 6 years to fully get into figuring out how to best utilize the preseason. For you, when do you feel like you hit your stride in your career?
I would say it would be right around there, 5 or 6. I think my first 4 years in Baltimore, I was always kind of fighting and clawing for a job or to keep a job, and got to Indy and got into a better routine and kind of solidified myself a little bit more there. But every year and every situation is unique and different. It just depended on how my body was feeling. Did I have a little injury? Was I feeling good? Was I not feeling good? Those types of things. So every year was a little bit different. And then when you go to different organizations, I went to a lot. I wore out my welcome after 4 years. That was like the maximum for me. 4 years, you're out of here, buddy. So once I wore out my welcome, I would go to another place, and everybody kind of handled preseason a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how different teams handle it too. Because you can be on one team and they want their guys to play all the time, and another team like, no, we don't want you guys to play, not during preseason. Like, wait a minute, how does this work?
Yeah, it is. It's different. Everybody has a different philosophy, and we always kind of played one series in that last preseason game when we were in Indy, and then I got here, and Coach Shanahan, hey. Didn't play us at all in that last preseason. I was like, yes, this is the best thing ever. Thank you, Coach. This is awesome.
Most offensive guys are like that. Preseason, you keep me off the field in preseason.
Right. Well, and once I became a little bit like I solidified myself as an NFL player, my mindset went to, man, I just don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
Like I've come this far, and the season's right around the corner. The last thing that I want is to roll an ankle or to hurt a shoulder and then start the year in the training room and missing games because of a game that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. That's where my mindset would go.
You know what's crazy? Like, that thought never entered my mind about don't play in this game because you might get hurt.
Yeah.
my mindset was always on, I got to get ready to play. I got to get ready to play. Even when I was working out, I'd be doing my hundreds, or running quarter miles, whatever I was doing. I was, oh, man, I got to be ready. You just got to be ready. Got to be strong. Doing lifts, getting my shoulders right. Shoulders got to be strong. Got to be strong. I never thought about, dang, man, don't play because you might get hurt.
Well, Steve, that's why you're a Hall of Famer, and I was a journeyman.
No,
receiver
come on
right
now.
there. There you go.
No.
Come on.
But I think
but
you
most
have the
offensive
defensive
players,
mentality.
I think most
you have the
offensive
defensive
players,
mentality.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Most offensive players, I'd probably wager a bet to say that they probably feel the same way. That, man,
I think once you have solidified yourself, early on, like I said, early on in my career, these preseason games were like Super Bowl. I mean, they were playoff games for me. I mean, because I had to play well to make the team, and I didn't realize any difference between preseason games and regular season games. They're all meaningful to me. But once I became a little bit more solidified in this league, and felt good about making a football team, my mind went to, man, I had a lot of injuries.
Right.
I was injured a lot, and so I feared being injured, and I didn't care about being injured in a game, but I feared being injured in a meaningless game.
Yeah. That's valid, though.
I mean that's the way it was for me.
How do you balance, Brandon, some of these guys we just talked about, you kind of, earning your place in the league. For the guys that haven't and, maybe you get a little dinged up here, how important is it to just kind of push through it? Or, I mean, because like Steve likes to say, you can't make the club in the tub.
That's right.
Club in the tub,
That's
baby.
right. You can't. You have to be out on the football field. If you're on that bubble, and you get injured, it's probably game over for you. The team is just going to move on. So certainly being on the field and being available is huge for these guys. And sometimes you get the benefit of another guy getting hurt. So you don't know where you are on the depth chart. You can't read too much into that because injuries happen, and next thing you know, you can go from fourth string to second string like that. So you always have to be ready and prepared. But certainly getting injured right now for one of those guys, fringe guys, bubble guys, is not ideal at all.
What can players do to prevent it, or can it be prevented?
Well, I think, when you're talking about injuries, I think just trying to stay on top of it, and that's one thing that I learned a little bit later in my career, and I wish I would have realized earlier. Obviously, nutrition's a big deal, and it was talked about, for me early in my career, but I think the organizations now put so much resources, and you have a dietitian, you got great cafeteria in there, and you have all these things that are there to help you rest and recover, and it's such a big part of just every organization now, and that wasn't really the case back in the day. But for me, it was just about trying to stay on top of my body, getting the massages, and just to recover. But that took me a little while to learn. And I think these guys coming out of college are so much better prepared with their body and in tune with their body and taking care of their body.
Yeah. So early on, you were just like, hey, I'm
just winging it.
Going out to football, go to practice,
go to
home,
McDonald's. What can I eat? Okay. I mean, it's, yeah.
We used to bring chicken on the plane.
Oh, yeah.
We had to bring,
Popeyes.
Yeah. You had the same thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was Fridays. We had pizza Fridays, and it was, it was one of those things where it was talked about, but it wasn't really, it wasn't a big part of the organization's philosophy. And nowadays they realize the importance of all of those things with keeping your guys healthy. If your guys aren't healthy, guess what? It's hard to win in this league.
Yeah.
And I think organizations have realized that, and they put a lot of money into keeping guys healthy. And I mean, you walk in the Broncos facility. I mean, how about the cafeteria? I mean, how about the training room? I mean, it's as good as it gets. So they realize the importance of keeping guys healthy and nutrition and recovery.
We just saw Von Miller.
Good to see him back.
Yes. New father.
I can't wait to see, that was one of the disappointing things last year was just really excited about seeing Von and Chubb on the field together. And obviously that got cut short, but being able to hopefully see them this year on the field and see what that looks like. And, once again, we talk about the secondary and what Vic can do with the depth there, but you talk about having two premier pass rushers, and what it allows Vic Fangio to do with his defense, I think is going to be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, that's what as a guy in the secondary, one of the biggest benefits you have is having good edge guys and guys up front who can put pressure on the quarterback. Because without those guys, you got to cover all day.
Right.
And
you
can't do it.
No.
Can't do it. I don't care how good of a corner you are. If you don't have good defensive linemen, well, maybe if you Champ Bailey.
Yeah, just Champ.
you can do it. But most guys, they just can't do it. It is interesting you said that earlier that one of the most important things for you was the accuracy of the quarterback. That's the same thing Champ Bailey said. I was like, what do you look for in quarterbacks? What quarterbacks do you hate going up against? Guys who are super accurate, like Peyton Manning. He mentioned Peyton Manning first, off the bat. He could just squeeze it in there, whereas other guys, I could not have the guy covered perfectly, but because the ball was inaccurately thrown,
right,
I could
a little
make
bit behind, a little bit, Now that allows that guy to catch up. So you don't have to have the arm strength. To me, it's the accuracy and it's the processing. You have to process things quick, right? Because you want to be on time and with the football. So you have to be able to process things. And then if you're accurate with the football, if you have those two things down, you got a chance to be a good quarterback.
So I know you watch this then, and then you see the quarterback going through the progressions. What do you think so far about how these guys have done? Or have you got deep into the preseason, that first preseason game?
Well, the first preseason game was awesome. Look, Drew Lock, can he not turn the football over? Can he take care of the football? That's the big thing there for him, and he did that, but also made explosive plays. So he had the highest quarterback rating in all of NFL preseason game 1, and number 2 on that list was Teddy Bridgewater. So Teddy came in and played great also, and I think that's the effect of a great running game.
Yes. When
you can run the football, it opens up everything. Safeties start coming down a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, and you saw that on the KJ Hamler touchdown. So I think you probably will see these quarterbacks perform better in games because of the effect of the running game.
Yeah.
And practice, these safeties, they're not respecting the running game. These linebackers don't respect it as much because they're not tackling.
Yeah.
So I think in games, you'll see the effect of the running game, and that will help the quarterbacks.
And that comes from the offensive line, too.
And that's a good group up front this year.
Yes.
A lot of depth there. They got quality depth also. So it's going to be fun to watch them. It's been one of those things we've looked at the offensive line as a weakness. That offensive line will be, I think, a big strength.
Yes.
As we wrap up our coverage here at UC Health Training Center on the final day of training camp practice, I'm going to get a final thought from each of you guys. Brandon, first to you. Just your overall impressions of camp. I mean, it's been an eventful 17 days, but what have your final thoughts been, or what has this team left you with here as we wrap things up?
I'm excited. I'm excited about the depth on this roster. I'm excited about the skill position guys, the offensive line, this secondary, and just seeing how Vic's going to use this defense. So you talk about talent, depth on this roster, they have it. And so, trying to get back on track here, trying to get back to winning football games more consistently and a winning record. And they have the roster to be able to do it. We'll see which quarterback wins this quarterback battle. But you talk about roster, they got a really good roster.
Steve, you excited as B. Stoke over here?
I absolutely am. I think this is the best roster we've had, in the last 4 or 5 years. Just the amount of talent we have, the amount of depth that we have at each position. And the quarterback thing is going to be interesting. I've said this a few times, like Von Miller, I'd be happy with either one of those guys, especially if the offensive line comes out and played the way they played in the first preseason game and, continue to grow as a unit there. We got so many weapons that surround the quarterback that you just got to, not make bad decisions, and you'll have a good chance of doing well. And then with the running game we have, Melvin Gordon, you got Javonte Williams, and, Mike Boone, he's down right now. Royce Freeman, those guys.
Demarie Crockett's playing well.
Crockett playing well. And with the defense that we have, the depth that we have, I'm anxious to see. I want to get to the regular season. I just hope we don't have any injuries. That's the biggest thing. We were decimated with injuries last year. If we can stay healthy, we're gonna do well.
Brandon Stokley, some would say we saved the best for last here at training camp. We appreciate you joining us today. Where can fans find you, social media and the like here as we head into the regular season?
B. Stokley 14, got a radio show at 104.3 The Fan. 12-3, talk a lot of Broncos. So looking forward to this year, and can't thank you all enough for having me. Steve, congrats again, Hall of Famer, my man. That was great to see you in Canton. Well deserved. And
he responds live when he's on air, because I texted him one time. I was listening to them, and he's like, "Hey man, Steve."
Well, anytime you get a text from Steve Atwater, you get excited about it. So congrats, my man. Fired up for you, well deserved, and looking forward to hopefully seeing the Broncos get back on track this year and have a great season. Thanks for having me.
You're the man, B-Stoke. Thanks, buddy.
A couple of quick programming notes, Broncos country, before we say goodbye. In case you missed it last night, Brandon just referenced it. Steve Atwater's Road to Canton. We profiled Steve. It's a great special. Part 1 debuted last night to rave reviews if you haven't seen it. And Love 2-7 in the orange and blue. It's a must-watch. It's on our Broncos YouTube channel and the Broncos 365 app and denverbroncos.com. And speaking of Steve, he's back with yours truly on Broncos Weekend beginning this Friday, August 20th, 5 p.m. on the Broncos YouTube channel. Steve, Alexis Perry, and myself will once again be getting you set every week for the Broncos' upcoming matchup. Excited to be back and ready for what could be a dress rehearsal of sorts for the Broncos, as we mentioned, against the Seahawks. But until then, Broncos country, that's it for Broncos Camp 2021. A special thanks goes out to our crew behind the scenes here at UCL Training Center, as well as at the stadium up there at Empower Field at Mile High. They are the true heroes behind this show each day. And once more, for the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, I'm Matt Boyer. This has been Broncos Training Camp Live, presented by U.S. Bank.